What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're so excited to really kind of break down really what was, I think, a eventful weekend for NC State athletics. I wouldn't necessarily say an amazing weekend, but it was a good weekend, overall for NC State. But hey, every single day being an NC State fan is a great day. So obviously joined with us today, instead making we got Ryan Williams from the Inside Pack Sports. Thanks again, Ryan, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you, my friend.
Yep, thank you guys for reaching out. It's a pleasure.
Glad to do it. So, yeah. So again, make sure first of all, again, we're here basically discussing events from this past weekend. Also to talking about things coming up, obviously such as the game tomorrow against Kansas State for women's basketball. So if you have any questions, thoughts, or just want to say hey, make sure again to send us a comment. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, or at least just let us know who's here. So so jumping right into it here. First of all, obviously, one of the biggest things going on right now is NC State baseball is in extra innings in the third game against Florida State. It just went to the 11th inning. And one thing I wanted to bring up is one of the things I love is Chris Villeman. I swear he's got to be the most hype pitcher whenever he strikes somebody out to end the inning, man. Like, seeing him, like, I don't know. It just makes me so hype watching that guy. It's unbelievable. I love it. But yeah,
I mean, he brings the energy off the mound.
Yes, he does. And also too, I'm curious because from my understanding, it was that Sam Highfield was going to start the rubber match today. Did something happen that Logan Whitaker? Does anybody know if something happened that Logan Whitaker had to jump in and start for Sam?
I don't know. I didn't hear anything. Like you said, I was expecting Highfield to start, but.
Yeah, but I mean, he did a good job. I mean, he didn't give up a single earned run. So I mean, I'm not complaining here, but I was just like, just a little head scratcher there. So, but anyway, though, so jumping into it first, so we'll talk about women's basketball here. Coming off a dominant performance against Longwood. I think one of the things I wanted to go ahead and mention in terms of how the game went is I know when we were chatting in our group chat, we were saying that it just seemed like that NC State, that we were more focused on, getting people in, distributing minutes, just getting everybody in, getting everybody's involved instead of really kind of laying the hammer per se. I mean, was that kind of the sense you got, Ryan, from that game?
Yeah. And I think it's awesome, man. We're getting all this young talent in there in the NCAA tournament. You're not sitting them, the first year behind all these upperclassmen. I mean, they're getting in and playing. I mean, they've been good. I mean, they got some experience in the ACC tournament, and now you can say, hey, look, we got them in the NCAA tournament too. I mean, even if it's towards the end of the game, it's valuable minutes. I think in the future, it kind of wears off that rust, and they can be like, oh, I've been here before. I've been in this moment. At least I've played on this stage kind of deal. So I think it's cool to get them in there. I know they enjoy it, so it's big.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously too, it's, again, it just makes you so excited as a fan to, again, see, what the future is like. Now I know that obviously Wes Moore has made it very clear that he's definitely going to be filling the benches a little bit more with a couple of transfers, one or, a couple of transfers during this off season. But, I'm a huge fan of Madison Hayes. I love Madison Hayes as a player. So, I mean, it's awesome seeing her on the floor. Greg, anything to add to that?
No, like kind of Ryan was saying, getting these young ladies in these games, you don't know if you're going to need them later on in the tournament. So, if they get some experience now, like Ryan was saying, it won't be a shock when they're put in there, maybe in a key situation where they have to, fill either with foul trouble or injury. So that's definitely a good indoctrination to the tournament for them.
Absolutely. Anything else from your end, Michael?
No, not really. I mean, it was great to see, Isaiah James got actually on the SportsCenter top 10 too. So
I saw that. That was a great move. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to point out too, when it comes to women's basketball is right now Baylor's losing by 11 with a little bit over 5 minutes left to South Dakota. So that'd be a huge upset. And then Louisville's up by 4 with 5 minutes left in the second quarter.
Now how much are they up by? 2. Wow.
2. Well, now 2.
They got up to a 14-0 lead in that game. So, quick credit Gonzaga for getting back into that.
Getting back into it, absolutely. And then Creighton upsetting Iowa. I think that was a big upset, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
then South Carolina, Miami, I was shocked. 49-33 final. That's crazy low. That's insanely
I don't
low.
know. I mean, good for Miami, I guess.
Yeah.
I was
Even
I was
keep
sure.
it.
I was talking with Ryan before everyone jumped on, and I wasn't impressed with South Carolina. Like, they played good defense, but I mean they held Boston to 8 points. So that was the first time in a long time she hadn't gotten a double-double. Miami just
Mhm.
couldn't hit a shot, and they turned the ball over way too much. So I mean, obviously
Yeah.
South Carolina got the job done, but it was closer than I probably thought it would have been. I don't know what the
Oh, for
spread was,
sure.
but they won by 16, which I mean, the game was really never in doubt. I think the lowest Miami got it down to was like 8 or 9 in the fourth quarter, but every
Mhm.
time they got that close, South Carolina answered. And by
Yeah.
the way, State's got 2 on with 2 out. So just
Ooh,
to
Oh,
update
maybe
buddy.
that.
we'll see.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. No, hey, that'd be a huge series win, because I think that all of us State fans right now, and I'm curious your thoughts on State baseball right now, Ryan. But I mean, it's it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I think we kind of gotten a little bit of that punch in the gut, obviously riding so high off of the College World Series last year, riding so high off of Tommy White having just a ridiculous, unreal, ungodly, whatever word you want to describe it, first series. But I mean, assuming hopefully that we could pull this out, but let's assume either way. I mean, first of all, let me say, if we win this game tonight, does that change much in terms of your thoughts of this team?
Yeah, I was talking to one of my buddies about it because it's so interesting with event teams because it feels like they start off hot and then they'll kind of start off slow and they'll finish out hot season. And you had the one season where he had 20 plus wins in a row and then it kind of just tapered off. But when I was talking with him, he was mentioning baseball is such a funny sport. Like it's not like football, it's not like basketball. It's a lot of things have to go your way kind of deal, and it's so hard. I guess the way the game tracks. I think they'll be fine. And there was, I think they put themselves in a tough place because there was so much hype around the team beginning of the season. So it's like you had Tom White runs back to back to back. So you're like, oh, this team's winning everything. And then when they don't win everything, you're like, oh. But I think if you win the series here, I think it'll be very big for them to get back on track. I think ultimately they'll be fine. But I think, they kind of have to start now so they're not digging themselves out of a hole come near the end of the season for seeding purposes or, for tournament reasons.
Yeah, no. Well, and again, I mean, like, and there's so many examples you can point to, like, Texas losing their series at South Carolina, Mississippi State starting off 6-6, I mean, the list could go on, but I mean, Notre Dame, obviously as hot as they started, they've kind of tapered a little bit, and I mean, beating Florida State on the road, who I think, in most people's eyes is a top 10, top 15 team right now, would be huge for sure. But also too, I think the one other thing as well is I know that a lot of people really, jumped off the Tommy White train a little bit when, he started off so high and then really did almost nothing for a while, and then yesterday or today,
Earlier today,
earlier today, he hit 2 home runs, so it's like, whoa, see, there we go. That's what we thought.
So that's what we
talked about. The power.
But that's what we talked about, I think, one of our earlier shows like a week or so ago, is baseball is just a crazy sport. You can get on these hot streaks and I'll use the same analogy. The ball looks like a beach ball. And so, you're just crushing all day. And then you can go a week and, do fine. He's been doing okay. Like, he's still hitting the ball, but he's just not hitting it with power. But he's still hitting at a good average and all of that. So baseball is just a long season. Like, we're only 18 into it. We still got almost 40 games left. So,
yeah. It's like baseball. It's like a lot of, like in other sports, football and basketball, like you want to see consistency throughout the season and kind of improvement almost throughout the season. But baseball, it's like almost the one sport where it doesn't really matter if you do just drop a series 3 games in a row. Like, it's just a different sport.
It is. You're
obviously.
Right. By the way, end of the inning, we struck out 2 on, so going to the bottom of the 11th. So,
oh yeah, it seems like that was kind of the story for the Notre Dame game as well, or the Notre Dame series, where we had opportunities but just couldn't quite cash them. So, but again, so hey, we'll see what happens here. But one other thing I wanted to mention though, because just to kind of finish out the women's basketball topic, and well, actually, first let me shout out to Ted Carrera, San Antonio in the house. Thanks, Ted. Appreciate you jumping on, brother. And we'll talk wrestling here in a second. Don't worry. And I see Old State Boy tuning in as well. Thanks for joining us. So I mean, women's basketball here. Obviously, they play Kansas State tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, whatever you want to say, at 4 o'clock p.m. at Reynolds Coliseum in the round of 32. For those who don't know or aren't aware, we actually played Kansas State at Reynolds back on November 19th, which is a long time ago, but we beat them 90-69. So I mean, I say a long time ago, saying that obviously we're a bunch of different team probably since November 19th. They're a much different team, I'm sure, than November 19th. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily take that really, with much more than a grain of salt. I mean, I think that, if you're Westmore, it's, you got to put all that mindset behind of, oh, we've already beaten this team before, we've already done this, done that. Like, no, I mean, you gotta, put your foot on the throat, from the moment the ball goes in the air, and really take it from there. But, I mean, you feel confident though, for sure. I think, I think that everybody's, rested. I think that Kansas State obviously had to kind of gut it out a lot more against Washington State. So you feel good about that. And obviously it's going to be a sold out game, I'm sure. So you're going to have the support of State fans there. So, I mean, Ryan, do you see, any really threat or any, points of emphasis really for the game tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a tournament, so I mean it can always go either way because you're gonna get the best. State's number one seed, so you're gonna get everyone's best game. I think the important thing for State, and you saw it against Longwood, is that everyone was hitting. Everyone was consistent on their shots. No one's in like a slump. I think Perez started 7 of 7, something like that.
She was ridiculous.
So, she was hitting everything.
Yeah, and it's like you were getting production across the board, and no one really seems in a slump. But I think the X factor, and it's been to me all year, is Diamond Johnson, because she can come off. So when everyone else is bringing in you're bringing in Diamond off the bench, who's going to turn the game up, and I just think she's been the X factor for State. She's had periods where she's not hitting everything, but she still shoots, and shooters shoot, and she has the ability. She can finish, and I mean, of course, as a State fan, I think we should win. We dominate them the first time. But it's still the tournament. You can get everyone's best game, and you will get everyone's best game. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting. Reynolds is going to be packed. It's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
So the one thing I noticed for K-State on Saturday, they didn't shoot the ball very well.
Right.
So I don't know if that continues. That'll be very well for State, and that should help us. But it's gonna be a matchup of inside with Cunane and Lee. That's where a lot of the work's going to be done. So if we take care of Lee, and they don't shoot very well like they did yesterday, we'll be fine. The problem with Washington State was they didn't have an answer for Lee inside, which was what we do. So I'm not too worried about it. But like Ryan said, in a tournament environment, one and done, that means one and done. So you got to bring your A game or you're going home.
Exactly. And because one thing I want to mention too with Diamond Johnson is I feel like that one of the beautiful things I think that we have with this team is that for a lot of teams, your bench can win or lose the game for you. Like, if you have production coming off your bench, you're in a great position to win. If you don't, then you're really putting yourself in a tough spot. But with Diamond Johnson, it's almost like with Diamond Johnson, like, because we've seen it plenty of times in games before, where just like you were saying, Ryan, where Diamond, wouldn't be hitting, just things weren't really clicking. She wasn't making shots, but yeah, we would still find ways to win. So it's almost like with Diamond, like if she's hitting, it just helps you immensely. But if she's not hitting, then it's not, it's not like, oh man, like, we're in a tough spot. Like, no, you still got Camille Hobby, Jada Boyd coming off the bench, so I mean, you feel confident, especially with the way Raina played yesterday. It's like, yeah, when she's playing like that, I mean, she can take over pretty much single-handedly. But the only other thing I'll say as well is obviously with Cunane is just got to keep her out of foul trouble. I think that's really the key one for pretty much every game this year. Just got to keep her out of foul trouble. And if we're not forcing Camille Hobby to play minutes, not necessarily saying that I'm worried if she's playing, but just saying like, I don't want to have to be forced to play her. I want to play her because I want to play her, and I want to give Kunain some rest, not because I have to take her out to save her from foul trouble.
Yeah, and it's tough too because Kunain, I feel like she is best when she's aggressive, but at the same time, I think Kunain knows as well. Like I can only be but so aggressive because she knows she means a lot to that team. So if she gets in foul trouble for being aggressive, then ultimately you can hurt your team. So it'll be interesting to see how she makes her impact. I mean, of course she will. So, like you said, we'll see how much of Hobby. But I mean, Hobby, she's good too.
She's awesome. No, I love Camille Hobby, and I love the future. Assuming that obviously she's going to be the main player down low next year. Obviously, I mean I think that's pretty much what she's been waiting for. So, but,
hey, Leighton, you mentioned the bench earlier. 46 points off the bench yesterday for state.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Teams would love to score 46 in a game, and a lot of women's basketball.
So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the starters like barely played it in the fourth quarter,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Kunain only played 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So Old
By
State
the way,
Boy kind of
1-2-3 for FSU. 1-2-3 for
nice.
Down. So top of the 12th we go. Sorry, dude.
Is Chris still pitching?
No, we switched out. I actually have it up on the screen here. I'm watching.
Okay, cool.
I'll keep too. Okay, no problem, Michael.
So Old State Boy brings up a perfect comment, which I think kind of leads us, next. So Old State Boy says, I get that state fans are rightfully upset with the men's basketball team, but we need to appreciate how amazing our women's basketball team is. Absolutely. I mean, definitely. I think that, with Tuffy Talk, I mean, we always cannot preach enough to state fans. I mean, you gotta, there's negative with every program, and there is negative with ours, especially, news that came out in the last 24 hours. But then I mean, women's tennis right now has their best start in conference play in program history. They're 17-1 overall right now, only losing to the number 2 team in the country at the time, which was UNC. And they're number 2, I think, right now in the country. And then, you could point out, obviously softball's, been a little bit of a slump recently, but they've been competitive in the ACC. And again, swimming and diving just finished their second best finish ever in NCAA history, or in their program history, with 5th overall. So again, there's just so much going on good right now. That's right. Yeah. A couple of individual national championships as well. So, but obviously, it's kind of like, it's the, what's the phrase, it's the elephant in the room, and I feel like that, we wouldn't be doing the weekly live stream justice if we didn't bring it up. Obviously, big news for all state fans are now aware, obviously, with Robert Dillingham, a consensus 5-star point guard for the 2023 class, announced that he's decommitting yesterday. NC State is still an option, but he has opened up his recruitment again. So, Ryan, I think for this news, for me, it still doesn't change much. For me, it's not an excuse whatsoever. We lost Dillingham, can't do anything about that. It's like, I don't care. At the end of the day, this off season needs to still be everything and then some. I mean, because it's so important to bring excitement back, because otherwise it's going to hurt the culture, around the program. It's going to hurt ticket sales. It's going to, it's not going to be good. You need that hype, at least heading into next year. So, I mean, would you kind of expand on that, kind of your thoughts of the Dillingham decommitment, and kind of thoughts on changing expectations at all for Keats?
Yeah, it's so interesting to me, man. Like, I had the feeling like he wasn't going to come. I think everyone else had that feeling. But the thing that interests me the most is why a month ago or 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was, did all these rumors start floating about Dillingham reclassifying, coming to state, and it pushed this narrative that this is going to save Keats. Like, this is what Keats has to look forward to. And, we kept hearing that over and over again. Obviously we heard it too, that it was a great possibility. And then, state fans are like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is our hope, right? So this dude's going to come in, be like a Smith, a volume stud. He'll be a true point guard running the offense. And then you get blindsided with this news as a fan. And you're like, so what is there? Like, but at the end of the day, I still think, and this is crazy, this is often, being optimistic, there's still a lot to look forward to. I think if you can bring Smith back, Sebron, and Bates, those are your 3 main guys, right? And you just build around them. It's not like the NBA where you got to work out contracts. Like, you just bring in key guys to fill around, the guys you already have there. And you have 3 really good guys in Smith and Sebron and Bates. But, they have to keep them. And I think first step for Keats is getting a true point guard. I feel like aside from Markelle, and even then, Markelle was iffy on a true point guard, but he was the closest we've had as a true point guard under Keats. And that's what his system needs. You can't have, like, I love Sebron, right? And I love Smith. But you can't have them running the point because they're not point guys.
No.
So
no.
I still feel like the number one thing that Keats is going to need is going to be a point guard, a true pass first point guard. And that's going to allow you to open up your offense. And people, everyone goes back to Bates being injured, but, I've played basketball my whole life, and it's a big deal in those screen offenses, because if you don't have a big that's going to collapse the defense off the wing, then you're not going to have any lanes. You're not going to have anything to kick out, and your offense is just going to collapse. And that happened over and over and over again because no one was respecting, anyone down low. So they're going to hit home runs.
Now, the 2 quick questions I want to ask you, Ryan, I'll hand it off to Greg or Michael. First of all, do you feel confident that Sebron is coming back? And then second of all, do you blame Keats at all that when Bates got injured and he saw that, okay, we need to find out, a way to respect down low, that maybe he didn't change his offense at all to kind of adjust for that, knowing that the defense is not going to respect down low?
Yeah. I think when it comes to Sebron, as the season has gone on, his draft stock has kind of gone down. So I think it's going to be up to Keats and the administration to give him a reason to come back. And hopefully they can figure out a way for him to come back, kind of deal. When it comes to the offense, it's tough because you basically were playing Gibson, who he was never meant to be a starter. And, State fans ragged on him all the time. But the reality was he was a 6'11" dude that could come in and be a practice guy for Bates. And he was never supposed to start. And then you're filling him into these roles. I mean, he was 2-3 years away. And same with Ebby. He had a couple breakout games where he had like 7-8 blocks here and there. But he was the same way. He was going to fill in the gap, maybe 5-7 minutes, 10 at most for Bates. And that was it. So when Bates goes down, I mean, it's just they try to run the same offense, but they couldn't get anything going with it.
It's true. Yeah, I see Greg's face. Just give me a. Ooh, so something just happened. But
base hit with an error. so we're on second with 1 out.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Gotcha. But yeah, now obviously one thing I want to point out, obviously when I did say that, I mean, he did technically say that NC State is still an option, but I can't think of one time where somebody's decommitted saying the team is still an option and then gone back to that team. Yeah, no, he ain't coming back. So I want to go ahead and throw that out there. But and obviously too, I think with Keats as well, again, it's for me, it's just really that, again, the expectation is straightforward. That's why I'm not really stressing about it, because at the end of the day, it's like, listen, here's your bar. You're either going to pass it or you're not. It's as simple as that. I mean, like, I think all of us State fans, I'm sure even Boo, I mean, has pretty much set that expectation for him for next season. And so that's really kind of where I stand for it. But it really does start with the offseason. I think that, again, but now one thing I want to say is, obviously with the announcement of Cam Hayes transferring, I think that pretty much solidifies that there's no doubt that he is going to come out of this offseason with a point guard. Now, is it a point guard that brings that excitement? I don't know. I mean, I think there's a couple of names out there which definitely come to mind, but again, it just got to bring some excitement back. That's my biggest thing. Got to bring excitement back. And especially, again, now the NCAA is gone, right? NCAA, sanctions is gone, right? So now, I mean, okay, here you go. Like, recruit, like you said, you can recruit and bring those guys in. That's kind of really where my head's at. But,
and then coach them.
And coach them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think the reality is like they realistically could have a season like You know, everyone's looking at Wake and they're like, oh my God, you know, this is a great dude. You know, why can't our program be like that? But like people don't realize that basically all these people they brought in were upper class, like Laravia, Alondis Williams. Like this dude, Alondis Williams was averaging like under 10 points at Oklahoma or something like that. And he comes in,
I think it was 6. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like how, you know, you gotta strike gold sometimes with that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's the landscape of college basketball now, where you can play right away. I mean, you're just going to have to hit it hard.
Yeah. Well, and especially too, because, you know, one of the things I want to mention too is that I think that now the way the transfer portal is, that the whole landscape in terms of how you should set up your team, I think for me is completely changed. You know, like before the transfer portal, I honestly said, listen, you need guys that you can bring in that are maybe like 4-star talents and develop them for 3 years, you know, develop them, you know, so that way you can cash in when they're a junior or senior. But now, honestly, with the transfer portal, it's like, listen, you know, I wouldn't be upset if honestly every single year you just like brought in like, you know, 5 or 6 transfers that are, you know, upperclassmen from like, you know, Houston's or UConn's or something like that, and just brought them in and put them together, and and there you go. You have experience and you have talent, you know, just like that. Bam. I mean, and so that's kind of really my thing is, I mean, the transfer portal has completely changed the way that you can do that. I mean, like I think today I was watching the Houston game and they were like, yeah, so and so is, you know, transfer from UConn and so is a transfer from Arkansas. It's like, I mean, I think that's almost every single player these days on every team is like, yeah, they're a transfer from this other team. Like, so it's completely changed the dynamic.
But I'd also like to try to find some guys that are going to stay with your program for 3 to 4 years, and look at these upsets in the NCAA tournament where you could look at these 10 seeds, 11 seeds, 12 seeds. Those are teams that have played together 3 and 4 years. And so kind of what you were saying is, you know, if you have them in the system, they're going to gel, they're going to be cohesive. And then maybe you dip in the transfer portal, or you get that 4 or 5-star guy to complement them. So there's definitely different ways to attack this. It's just you have to have a philosophy and stick with it, and that's your MO. So whatever that is, do it and roll. Like you can't be coming back and forth and trying to figure this thing out. And then to Ryan's point earlier about Gibson, you know, if you look at, you know, he was talking about how having that big. If you look at the women's team, they run everything through Cunane. They'll drop it down. If she's got to play, she'll make it. If not, she'll kick it back out, and we're shooting and hitting threes. So you know, that's a philosophy that maybe the men need to look at, and stop trying to rely on all these guard play, because it doesn't always translate.
Yeah.
So for me, the Dillingham situation, I don't think it really affects anything for next year. I mean, Boo's already said Keats is coming back. Now obviously it just means he needs a good transfer point guard from the portal instead of, okay, maybe it was Dillingham, but I don't know. I don't think it changes much, but it doesn't give me a lot of hope for the future after that. You know, because those are recruits. Dillingham, and he's a recruit that brings other recruits to your program. You know, if you get a top 10 recruit and a top 10 recruit doesn't want to come play for you, then why would any of the lower ranked players want to come play for you if the best players in the country aren't going to come play for you? So that does worry me a little bit more. But like you said, with the transfer portal, you never know. Maybe he'll turn it around in 1 year. We'll see.
Greg?
Yeah, and that's the issue too. Oh yeah, Greg, go. I see you're happy over there.
What? Yeah.
Devontae Brown, 2-run home run.
Nice.
Ooh, nice. Okay, nice. There we go. Okay.
So pack up 2.
Right.
So please,
right,
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Ryan, go.
I went fandom for a second.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, it's like over the past week or two, it's just been bad news after bad news after bad news for basketball. And then you get this on Dillingham, and you're like, all right, what? It can't get worse than this, right? Like everyone's just like, all right, this is whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one of those things. It's just like adding on.
Yeah.
Right.
We haven't even mentioned the 2-year extension thing.
I knew exactly where you were going, Michael. I knew exactly where you were going to go.
Yeah, and so for those who are listening that aren't aware, so just make sure I have it correct. So basically, there's a clause in his contract, Keats' contract, where if the NCAA investigations go away, he has the option to extend his contract by 2 years. Am I correct on that?
So it was he has the option to extend it for however long the penalties last.
Each penalty was.
So if we didn't get any
years.
punishment from the NCAA, he wouldn't have gotten the option for an extension. If it had just lasted 1 year, he would have had the 1 year option. But since it's lasting 2 years, he gets a 2-year option.
And let's talk about how it was done in the secrecy of dark last summer. Like no one knew about it. They only found out through a FOIA request. So, that was pretty shady. But it also explains why Boo was so supportive too, because he knew what was going on in the background.
Yeah,
true. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, was the extension was automatic, right? Like it just
no, he has to opt in.
Oh, okay.
And as of last Thursday, Joe Giglio, who's the one who pretty wrote the story, said that he hadn't enacted it yet, or whatever you want to say.
Really?
So if you're gonna get rid of him, now is the time. Assuming he hasn't signed it.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to me because we found out about the penalties 4 months ago, and I don't know.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, listen, I mean, in a way, it almost, you obviously don't know what the man is thinking, obviously, but in the back of my head, because obviously, in everybody's mind, it's like, listen, heck yeah, you're going to extend it. Why? Because then you're going to get more money. If we have to fire him, then he gets more money in his pocket. But also, it's like, maybe he's that good of a guy that's like, like, listen, like, I'm not getting it done. Then, I don't want this, pity money, but I mean,
I bet
that would go a long way with
Band-Aids.
That's a lot of money to walk away from.
I agree, but I mean, I don't know. So but and one other thing I want to mention too with Dillingham, though, the one thing that really disappointed me when it came to Dillingham, because again, for those who don't know, I had the opportunity of seeing him in person when he was in Combine Academy. And again, he's just a guy that fits perfectly with Keats' system from everything I've seen. He's a guy that he is a true quarterback of an offense on the basketball court. And I think that's exactly the guy that you need. You don't need a guy that can score 25 points a game like Dennis Smith Jr. could. You need a point guard that can distribute, that can get guys open, that can get guys space, that can collapse the defense onto him and then dish out. Like that's what you need. And that is exactly what Dillingham's game is. And so that's my biggest bummer, honestly. It was like, it fits so perfectly, in terms of, he could jump in and probably a year, give him a year to kind of adjust, and then start in year 2, then bam, I think he's ready to rock and roll, and really take over this offense. But, again, it is what it is. So,
I think the biggest example of like what a point guard can do for you is look at what Perez did with Wes Moore. I feel like Wes Moore never had a true point guard. You bring in Perez, she's a legit point guard, ball handler, and she runs the offense with no problem, hardly ever turns it over, and gives you a 3 here and there. And that's what you need her to do.
Yep. Exactly what we've been saying. I agree with what we've been saying.
I agree.
Yeah.
So obviously, want to jump over a little bit here to wrestling, which for those who can see, I got my NCAA wrestling shirt on because I really did wake up this morning and it literally did hit me like, oh my God, like, state's wrestling season's over. Like, this is crazy. Like, like it was an amazing year. Again, it's kind of for me, like, my basic gut feeling about it is, I mean, it was an awesome year. I mean, obviously we walked away with 2 ACC titles, multiple ACC champions individually. I mean, obviously watching Hayden and Trent and Tariq and the whole roster from top to bottom was amazing to watch. And obviously, I mean, they all competed. Now, obviously, I think that day 2 of the NCAA wrestling, it's kind of one of those things like, you wish I had that reset button. It's like, yeah, that was crap. Let me start that. Let me start that over again. But so that's kind of my immediate thoughts about it. I mean, Ryan, I mean, I don't know how much you really watch wrestling, but I mean, do you have any kind of added thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was funny, man. I was actually in the gym when Hayden was wrestling, or no, Trent was, and I'm like sitting there in between sets, like just getting hyped about it. And I was like, man, this is what it's all about, getting hyped over these guys. But I think Trent or Hayden had said about him that he was sick or dealing with some kind of illness in the tournament. And I noticed when he was wrestling, you could really see it. He he just seemed fatigued. He wasn't really getting to his spot. And he got it was unfortunate. He basically lost right at the very end. But I mean, overall, I mean, I'm sure they wanted to compete better, but it's still awesome seeing those guys getting to compete on the spot. Like you have such a bright future with Jack and Camacho. I mean, the program's still in great hands. You got some big guys coming in.
Yep.
So
Yep.
So you were in Detroit when you said you got to see him wrestle, or?
Oh no. I was at the gym. I was at the gym. They had the championships going on, and I was just watching it whenever they would come up and watching them compete. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, okay, I was like, dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Dang, that's
no.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know, because obviously, I think for me, like, if you would ask me heading into NCAA tournament, like, you know, like how many national champions are we gonna have individually, I would have said there's no doubt we're gonna have at least one. But my opinion, I think that we have a good shot at getting two, at least two. And it was so funny because again, for those who don't know as well, my wife had LASIK eye surgery on Thursday, and she woke up, you know, for dinner, and she was like, you know, asked me like, hey, how's it going? And I was filling her in, and obviously at that point we had 4 people heading to the semifinals, and she was like, so who do you feel the most confident about, you know, winning it all? And I was like, I mean, that's a tough choice, but I would say probably Tariq. I mean, I think Tariq was, I don't know, man. There's just something about that dude that he's legit. But I think it's also a combination of that. Trent and Hayden's classes are really, really stacked. But I think Tariq, you know, his class was not quite as stacked. So that's, I'm not necessarily saying that Tariq's the best wrestler. I'm just saying I think that his competition was not as intense as the others were. And then of course, you know, he's the first match, you know, to lose, you know, and go to the constellations and get pinned the way he did. I was like, seriously, like, you know, oh my god, like, you know, that blew my mind. So yeah, so again, that's why I'm like, it's disappointing because I mean, I think this team could have and should have done a lot more, but it's also like, listen, I mean, you know, you had 3 guys finish, you know, top 7 in their weight class. You had 3 All-Americans. You could argue Ed Scott got screwed on a terrible pin call, terrible pin call, and you know, it's I mean, every single guy made it to day 2, which is awesome. I mean, not a lot of programs to say that. So, you know, that's kind of really where my head is at, you know. So, I mean, Greg, I mean, do you have anything to add to that?
No, well, I mean, yeah, of course I do. I always have something to say, but you know, we get to put something on in the Raptors again in Reynolds. You know, we get to add a top 10 on there. We got some All-Americans to add up to the Raptors. So, yeah, Ted put it really good in the chat. You know, there's a ton of programs that would love to finish top 10. I don't know how many Division I teams wrestle, but you know, you're in the top probably 5%, or you know, probably higher than that if you're in the top 10. So, yeah, I'm still new to wrestling. I got really into wrestling thanks to you, Leighton, and you know, some other folks that I've talked to. So I'm excited for the future. Like Ryan said, there's a ton of stuff coming in. We've got a really good class, some highly touted folks, and then our young guys will just get better as they progress in their practice, and then you know, depending on what weight classes they move to. So I'm all in for the future of Pac wrestling. So let's go.
And wasn't Hayden? Didn't he wrestle a couple weight classes up this year?
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So, because I think honestly that basically that was his thing with Pop, was he said, like, if I come back, I don't want to have to, you know, basically, you know, worry about weight. I have to lose 20 pounds from my natural weight every single week. Like, I want to wrestle more in my natural weight. And obviously I think that he understood that by doing that, he was going to have to go against guys like Clay Lout, you know, Sirkachi, and Makai Lewis, you know, so, you know, but I think he, you know, he wasn't scared, and he shouldn't be scared, you know, of those guys at all whatsoever.
I was going to say that, yeah, props to him.
Yeah.
He took a challenge on, and you know, that's what you want, right? You want to challenge your team, and you want to get the very best out of them. So hats off to him for doing that.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, like, going on, if you had to ask me, you know, going into the second day, I think we were in 3rd overall as a team. Is that, I think that's right.
Yeah.
And
we were right there.
Ending up with 3 in the semifinals. I thought we'd at least get one out of there, but it's tough. But you know, it was all extremely hard fought matches. And it's exciting for the future.
Well, and also too, one thing I want to mention is that for anybody who hasn't already seen Hayden's speech, I mean, I
brought tears in my eye. I'm not gonna lie.
I will literally shake you, be like, go watch it. Please go watch it. Like
Yeah.
it is unbelievable. And I think Pop said it best, basically saying like this is what really exemplifies what our program is all about. It's like, it's just like with a guy like Hayden that I think, and for those who don't know, we did a Twitter space on Saturday between sessions, or Friday between sessions. And, I had to was kind of like on the border of like, is Hayden one of the greatest to ever do it? And basically from that conversation I had with Michael Machiavelli and Wolfpack Roll and things like that, it was just like, because like my biggest worry was like, how can you put a guy as one of the best if he hasn't won a national championship? But I mean, they point out, I mean, he is one of the only ever 4-time ACC champions. He's a 5-time All-American. He's won, well over 100 matches. I think like, 120 some odd matches. Had one of the longest streaks of ACC wins, program history. I mean, and dude was just a beast. He was just an absolute beast from the moment he stepped on his state's campus. So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind he's one of the greatest of all time. And for him to literally say in the interview right after match that I'm hanging up my cleats, I'm stepping away from competition completely, that took me back, because I was like, wow, like this guy could easily go and compete with the Wolfpack RTC and compete for a team, try to compete for a Team USA slot. And he pretty much said, listen, I want to step away and I want to go basically be a coach. That's basically what I got from it. And it's unbelievable. Now if he comes back to state or if he goes to another program, I don't know, but it's unbelievable. But I mean, I'm sure that because again, basically my guess is that either Tim McCall will get maybe get a head coaching spot, or Kevin Jack will go get an assistant coaching spot somewhere, and then Hayden will jump in, maybe as a volunteer assistant. So we'll see. But yeah, that took a lot from me. I mean, so I mean, Ryan, I know I just kind of went to a little bit of a rant there, but just it hit me, man. Like, dude, that was an awesome speech. One of the greatest speeches, honestly, I've ever heard, man. It was awesome.
It gave me all the, before Ryan jumps in, I just want to, it gave me all the feels.
Yeah.
And it should be shown to every recruit that ever comes through those doors.
Yep.
Just to be like, this is what you're going to get if you come to this program. So go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I didn't have much to add, but I think it goes back and shows the importance of sports. I think I retweeted you guys' post yesterday of the two wrestlers just like passed out, but they still showed.
Yeah, that was funny.
It's like you don't realize how connected these guys are, and it's like when you play on a sports team, you realize how important this stuff is. These guys are family, and thankfully now with social media, we have the ability to see all this stuff, right? Because before, we never would have seen this side of things. But I mean, he's an awesome person, and I think that program has developed awesome guys. I think they've all came in and developed themselves both mentally, physically, and as athletes and as people. And that's why Pop is probably one of the greatest coaches in state history.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And again, the fact that he's young. I mean, he's got plenty more years ahead of him. Being
45, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, he's got at least a good 20 years. If he wants it. So, it's unbelievable. And again, but also too, I mean, you got to point out again, Coach Hall, Coach McCall, Kevin Jack, all of them. Were absolutely exemplary this year for sure. So again, as long as we can hold on to specifically Coach Hall and Coach Pop, who I think are the two main pieces. I mean, I'm not saying that Coach McCall and Coach Jack isn't, but I'm just saying that more than likely they're going to probably go, try and get, some more money and, maybe get a better position. And that's understandable. That's every program. So,
that's how it works.
But that's how it works. So,
and that's what you want for your guys too.
Exactly. No, that's what you want. Absolutely. And so, but the only reason why I say that I would assume if Hayden can help it, he's going to try and find a way to stay here is obviously with Trent wrestling here. He wants to watch it. He wants to be part of it. So, so he wants to be around for that. But so, and obviously I want to also to make sure I see you chat Beck Wolfpack 813 about the Devontae Brown 2-run shot. Yeah, I just pulled it up as well because I'm like, where are we? Like, I haven't really heard anything or seen anything yet, so I'm guessing we're
we're moving along.
Yeah, so I'm guessing we're still in the top of the 12th.
Bottom of the 12th, one on for Florida State, nobody out.
Ooh, okay, all right, interesting.
Yep.
And Ted Carreras right there said Coach Hall is the biggest cherry on the staff that other teams are trying to pick. Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, there's no doubt that guy should easily be could be a head coach anywhere. Now, I mean, one thing I do want to say is obviously he has a young child, and I think that every single coach I've ever heard, come to Raleigh, they always say, "Oh, I want to stay in Raleigh." Like, Raleigh's a great place to raise family. It's not one of the best in the country, and so I think that plays a lot into it. Along with, he can stay here and be an assistant coach or assistant head coach, with Pop for as long as he wants to. He has job security. He'll get paid well for it. And he'll be beloved by state fans forever and ever. Like, just as much as Pop. That's kind of really my pitch to him, but I wouldn't blame him if he took a head coach job somewhere, but I'd be sad for sure. I mean, it would, it'd blow to see him not NC State. I do, between him and Pop, man, those guys are hype. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's in any sport, any program. I mean, if you're one of the top teams, you're in and you're out, your assistant coaches are going to be valuable head coaches somewhere else. So yeah,
absolutely.
They're still not. They're sure not taking them from underperforming programs. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
By the way, Florida State just tied the game 5-5, 2-run shot.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Jeez Louise.
So
okay.
They're still batting nobody on, one out. Yeah, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but it had to be done.
That's a kick in the nards. Yeah. So where are we at? So I mean, I think that kind of basically summarizes right now in terms of kind of what just happened, obviously, with this past weekend. But obviously, want to mention once again women's tennis. I mean that right now they're as hot as any team in NC State right now, against 17-1 overall. And so one of the things I want to mention, and I want to get your opinion on, Ryan, is so I know that a lot of State fans were really kind of critical on Boo Corrigan because there was reports that he went to the women's basketball championship game, but then he didn't go to the championship game or championship tournament for wrestling in Charlottesville. But there was reported reports from a couple different people that Boo Corrigan was cited in Detroit. And so, I mean, I think that, again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, listen, guys, I mean, I know we're trying to find things, to harper on, Boo Corrigan about because, of, like, let's say the way he handles the Keats' job or the way that he handled the College World Series. But, I mean, between, things that he's done, like, helping a lot with getting Coach Beck, between the support of how he handled the Holiday Bowl crap shoot right there, and other things as well. I mean, listen, I mean, this guy, believe it or not, might be a great person for the job. Believe it or not, he might be a great person for the job, which is, I mean, and I think us State fans maybe just need to accept it. Listen, I think he supports, every program. He understands the importance of every single program we have for the sake of the overall athletic program. And I think that, he does a great job of running the ship and fighting as hard as he can for the coaches and all the players and the fans. So, I mean, can you kind of talk it all? I mean, feel free to say no, Leighton, like, he blows and let me tell you why. But I mean, I just don't see how you could possibly say that, but prove me wrong if you are.
Yeah, for me, it's just fans being fans, man. We love to complain. We want everything to be great. And even if things are great, we'll still complain. That whole ACC women's championship going to the wrestling thing is as big of a deal as some people were making it. I really don't.
Yeah.
Overall, he is an extremely well-respected guy everywhere he's been. His father was really well-respected as well. The whole NCAA baseball thing, it's like you're one of those situations, man. Like, what are you going to say? At that time, it was basically like when COVID was at its strongest point. So it's like, what can you say? What can you do? So you can't really, nothing would have changed the outcome. To magically play the game if he's put up a front.
Right. He marched into Mark Emmert's office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you get here to the Holiday Bowl, and he fought for state because it was messed up. Like that whole situation
Completely.
is so
It's
jacked
dirty.
up on so many fronts. But I think overall, to me at least, I like him. I think he's done anything wrong per se, and I think the whole Keats situation is a lot deeper and more convoluted than a lot of people think. It's not simple as this guy's losing. Like there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't say much.
Yeah.
It's like, but at the same time, the teams that are winning are Debbie House teams.
Right.
It's his coaches. So I mean, you can point to Beck, and that was a home run hire for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I see both sides, so I completely understand, and I don't fault
Yeah.
anyone. My thing is like, please stop tagging the dude on Twitter, man. Like, you guys hate on him for not like talking on Twitter, but then tagging him so he sees stuff. But again, fans being fans, and I don't fault them because I understand.
The one of the other things that is, like you said, fans being fans. It's Debbie Yao obviously deserves all the credit in the world for the hire she made in the program she's lifted up and put us where we are. But at the same time, she's the one that hired Godfrey and hired Keats, and everybody's trying to blame Boo for not firing Keats while giving Debbie Yao all the credit for all the success. So it's like, kind of, when does Boo start to get some credit, and when does it kind of even out? You can't give Debbie Yao all the credit for all the successful sports and just blame Boo for the bad ones right now. Like, there's got to be balance there somewhere.
Yeah, and think about it this way. I'll use the analogy in pro sports, with the general manager, because that's essentially what an AD is, right? So many times you hear about a coach in a new GM and hire it's the old coach, and they're quick to pull the trigger because that's not their hire.
Right.
So give Boo some credit where he's kept Keats around. Like, he could have been like, well, that wasn't my hire, he's out. Like, it would have been. Granted, money talks. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
When you're not talking professional money versus what is it?
Just college athletics money.
College athletics money. Yeah.
Just keep it simple.
Donor money is where I was trying to go with that. Yeah, donor money was where I was trying to go with that. But
Gotcha.
So there are other factors included in that. But he is sticking with Boo. And the other point I want to make about Boo helped pull down the COVID debt, right? We had like $22 million in debt, and he's somehow balanced the books through donor
raising that
contribution.
money.
I mean, if you're 22 in the hole, you can't hire new coaches or fire coaches or build up your facilities. So that's something that we have the ability to do in the future because he has gotten that debt down.
Well, and you also probably go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead. Say to piggyback.
Well, the only point I'm going to say one thing real quick. The only thing I would say in terms of if you're 22 million in the hole, you might also be talking possibility of getting rid of one of these teams because you can't financially support them. So that would be huge. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, he hit the donor per se for basketball hard.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah,
the donor
right.
portal.
And he got all these background donations, like you said, to alleviate that debt. And I truly believe with this new NIL stuff, that was another big thing with donations. I firmly believe that's what's going to basically drive a lot in basketball this year. I think they're going to kind of try to push towards that to kind of keep these guys and bring some guys in. And I think, Boo knows people. And like I said, people respect him. So, and they trust in him. And that's why you see all these donors pitching in because they believe in what he is aiming for. So I don't know. I mean, I personally like him.
And just a couple other things he's done. The Doak renovations, got those done, and paying the football staff and coaches extensions and raises and their bonuses for 10 wins, even though technically they didn't get 10 wins. But he did that.
No, but he did right. He did right.
Yeah,
he did right by his word. And I think every single State fan 100% agreed that you got to pay them based on it that they should have / did get their 10th win. Period. Straight simple.
Right.
Go ahead, Greg.
And the last thing I was going to just say is those might be Debbie's hires, but Boo is keeping them around by paying them.
Mhm.
To kind of Michael's point in what Ryan was saying. Sometimes it's not about creating; it's about maintaining.
Right.
So,
Amen.
that's the sign of a good leader is keeping everyone status quo, as long as status quo is on the positive.
Amen to that. Amen. So, kind of wrapping up here, one of the things I wanted to bring up, obviously, is we're I wouldn't say in the middle, but kind of we're kind of on that where we're I guess we are, in the middle of spring ball. Obviously coming up here, we got in 2 weeks here, less than 2 weeks actually, the spring game. So I think obviously there's a lot of excitement. Obviously, heading into next year, no doubt about it for football. I think there's a lot of expectations, not only put on by fans, but put on by the players themselves. I think it's pretty much set that all these guys are coming back for one reason and one reason only, and that's to win an ACC championship. Period. Straightforward. Nothing else asked. And so it's kind of one of those things. I think that right now there's really two big things that really need to happen. First of all, we need to get a big time or a good offensive tackle transfer in. I know we're all kind of looking at the Vanderbilt offensive tackle, hoping he can come in. But also too, just kind of figuring out the running back situation. But beyond that, that's really kind of my two biggest questions, really, coming out of this spring ball. I mean, Ryan, would you kind of agree with those two kind of questions, or would you maybe add any kind of things you're looking at for the spring ball session?
To see what happens with Zavala. I think we're going to be in good hands because they're lawyering up, and we all know that the NCAA does not like lawyers. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like they're building a fluke case. I mean, you look at it and you're like, why isn't this dude playing?
He missed the whole season because his team didn't play.
And it wasn't his choice. And then, but for offensive tackle, man, there's this freshman we have coming in, Jacarius Peak. I'm telling you, that dude, he may not make a huge impact this year, but like that dude, he's physically built like he could come in and just start right away. Like if they could have got him in early and start working right away, man, he could have been big. For running back, I think we're going to be okay. I know they're kind of going to assess the situation after spring ball and see where they're sitting at.
Yeah.
I think they're serviceable. I wish Bam had stayed, but I think Houston's been there. He's a Durham guy. He's been there a long time, and I think he's going to be good. There's been a lot of talk about Sumo in practice, so I'm excited to see what he's going to do. Special teams. For me, the biggest is probably going to be receiver, because you bring in that dude from Maryland to replace Amezi, and I've heard good things about him. He's supposed to be a really good guy that can stretch the field, and I think that's what you're going to need, to take some pressure off of Carter on the other side and free up a lot of lanes in the slot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I didn't really mention wide receiver more just because we have options, and I think there's also been some young guys that kind of haven't been getting a lot of minutes that have stuck around that have been really impressive during spring ball. So, that's why for me, I was like, but also too, at the end of the day, let's be real, you have a guy like Devin Leary that's as talented as Devin Leary is, he can make wide receivers look better maybe than they actually are. I mean, look at Sam Howell. I mean, he made Josh Downs look like a first team All-American, number 1 overall pick last year, so not saying that Devin Leary is necessarily a Sam Howell, but I'm saying he's a really, really good quarterback. That's pretty much straightforward. So, but yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's one other thing I want to, put in Boo Corrigan's hat as well, saying, he's had, I know for a fact that he's done a lot to really help with that Zavala case in terms of helping with getting the lawyer and all that jazz as well. So, I mean, again, it just adds to more of the narrative. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say on the running back front, we did lose Bam and Ricky, but we were last in the ACC in rushing yards like last year. So and we were still a very good team. And like you said, Jordan Houston, a guy who's been there, he may not get 1,000 yards this season. But he's a guy, that knows the offense. He's probably going to make very little mistakes, and it's a guy you can trust in the backfield.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's great.
And I will throw out March 25th, like a big recruiting day for state. They're going to have a bunch of guys come.
Yep.
That's going to be one of the bigger days prior to April, and then rolling into summer camps.
Yep. So, unfortunately, we've reached, the 1 hour time mark. So, Ryan, I wanted to ask you, I mean, any, points you want to make, or any comments you want to make here, to kind of round off this live stream here?
Yeah.
Any
So,
big news? Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe not news, but I just think as State fans as a whole, I think our athletics are in a great spot. I don't think basketball should take away any of its glamour. Everything's going to work out. I firmly believe we're going to be in a better spot than we are, currently with basketball. But we have a women's team to cheer on tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that, and I think they're going to go far.
Amen to that. Amen. Well, thank you all so much again for tuning in. Once again, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out when we release any new NC State content. And also, as well, I got to give a shout out and pitch to my man Ryan as well. Obviously, give him a follow on Twitter as well. And again, check out him and his team's stuff with Inside Pack Sports. Definitely top notch stuff for sure. So definitely make sure to go and check them out. And also if you don't mind as well, while you give them a follow, if you haven't already followed us, give us a follow at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter or Instagram. And again, we'll keep on rolling here. But thanks again, Ryan, for joining us, my friend. Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. As always, go Pack, y'all. We'll see y'all soon.